what is in between, the interrelation that catapults people to be the best that they can be in any environment. And just the approach to society, to humanity, to our flawed selves in a
Mm.
way that's kinder and just gentler and more understanding and then supportive. I feel Balabosta really became a beautiful offering that held all of these threads together. Really just looking to address what I felt and still feel is somewhat of a critical gap in the wellness space. Our relationship with our belongings, our relationship with our spaces, how we inhabit a space, and the impact of this on our everyday life.
Gal Yaguri is the founder of Balaboste, a space organizing service located in New York City. Gal believes that our spaces and our belongings are a reflection of who we are, and that when you transform your space, you can transform yourself. Just by that statement alone, you know I had to have Gal on for today. In this episode, we start with what the term Balaboste actually means, and we also bring awareness to the fact that clearing and organizing space is a tremendous undertaking for so many of us. And Gal helps clients ease into their projects by simply meeting them where they are. Gal and I explore the shame and guilt around not only the things we keep, but also around the actions we take at the end of our quote-unquote things life cycle. Gal's commitment to humanity and the planet involves critical zero-waste practices. What she is doing with Balaboste's sustainability practice is something beyond anything I've personally encountered, and it's really inspiring. Please enjoy today's conversation with Gal Yaguri. Gal, thank you for coming on today. So excited for our chat this afternoon. When we met a few weeks back, I wish we were recording then. We were already vibing, I feel like.
Totally. I'm thrilled to be here. And I agree. I think our conversation started a few weeks ago and then it continued in our heads. And now I'm excited to share it with everybody.
Yes, yes, me too. So, Gal, you're the owner of Balaboste. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, that's
Wonderful,
great.
great.
Not easy.
It's such a fun word. It's so playful. I love it. I know it's a Yiddish word. And my mother-in-law, we are not Jewish, but my mother-in-law, we call her Bubby. That's a Yiddish grandmother's name,
Yeah.
right? My oldest niece started calling her Bubby, and it just stuck. So now even we as adults call her Bubby. She's adopted the name.
Yeah. There are a few really cute Yiddish words that stuck. Oi. Oi.
Mm,
When something
boy,
goes
yes.
wrong. Oi is another good one. But Balabosto is always a near and dear term for me as I learned it as a young girl growing up in Israel. And my grandmother was truly the embodiment of this woman, this mistress of her household that cares for everyone in the home, but also the friend circle and the extended family circles and just kind of pays attention to what's up and does it so gracefully and lovingly and naturally. I always
Mm,
joke that my grandma would put lipstick on and then go cook in her kitchen. Like she just embodies it. She just loves doing that kind of stuff. So the
yeah.
word is lovely to me. Brings a smile every time.
Oh, good, good. I could just picture her now in her kitchen with her lipstick on. That's cute. That's
Totally.
cute. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about, your journey to creating your company. I always like to spotlight our journeys because I think that's really what connects us all, and finding something in another person that you can relate to. I know you have a corporate career as well. So, what you're doing now with this company is so intimate, really working with people and uncovering their attachments to their spaces and their things really requires a lot of trust because, again, it's just an intimate way in which to serve people. So I'd love to hear how you got into it, what inspired you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a really nice way to set it up. I really feel my career trajectory has always kind of set me up for this moment. My background was film and television production. I'm Israeli. I grew up in Israel and moved here when I was 20 for what was going to be 6 months of blowing off steam and turned into a lifelong commitment to establishing myself in the United States. I am married to an Israeli and we have two daughters. And the career was predominantly focused on operations, human resources management. I have background in IT. I have background in legal a little bit. labor law and other, always somewhat in a business operations setup next to creative people, always.
Mhm.
And the last job I held was at a leadership development company that's headquartered up in Boston. It's a women owned business and they really are magic workers. And I learned a lot in collaboration with these people, including developing the language that I lacked, I feel in conveying what perhaps the ether of all of these different, what does the human resources component translates to in the everyday life and but what it doesn't say, what is in between the interrelation that catapults people to be the best that they can be in any environment. And just the approach to society, to humanity, to our flawed selves in a
Mhm.
way that's kinder and just gentler and more understanding and then supportive. I had accumulated a certification in interior design from Parsons at some point along the way and never explored it. And I feel Balabosta really became a beautiful offering that held all of these threads together. Really just looking to address what I felt and still feel is somewhat of a critical gap in the wellness space, our relationship with our belongings, our relationship with our spaces, how we inhabit a space, and the impact of this on our everyday life. And so that's really what led me here today.
I totally feel you on that. I also run my own interior design business, but even then I felt like there was something still disconnected. And I picked up a book by Tisha Morris called Mind, Body, Home. And
Oh,
that changed my life. And that's really become like my tagline for my business is that home is that missing connection to the mind body equation. And I think that's really what you're speaking to here is that there is this connection to our things.
totally. And I find that, as a society, we have the attention to appreciate those things when we first purchase them or when we inherit them or whatever the circumstances that brings those items to our home. But then something happens and it just becomes another thing that we own or we just fall out of love with it or it just doesn't matter as much anymore and it's forgotten. And I think that
Mhm.
that editing is so important, just like any other measure that we do in our everyday life to assess how well we're doing or not. So I'm glad you're bringing that up. That whole concept and your background suggests similar tracks.
Yep, definitely. So when you land on your website, the message that greets your visitors is our spaces and our belongings are a reflection of who we are. Transform your space, transform yourself. I love it. It's so true because, like I was just saying, I speak to this too in what I teach and what I talk about on the podcast about the mind body home connection and that the things around us in our environment, they are connected. And so when things in our environment are making us feel chaotic, again, it's sort of like this unconscious thing that we're not even aware of. So this is what you do, I believe, is you kind of bring some awareness to the things inside people's homes and help them understand what is their attachment to that.
Your approach is fascinating to me in that it's so elemental. It
Mhm.
really touches on the absolute baseline to this exploration of our relationship with our belongings. Like you start with something that is so basic. It's not a good word because it suggests it's simplistic or like easy.
Mhm,
It's
right.
just there's something so core to that. And for me, it's more energetic. I have some background in energy behavior, and I believe that items hold energy in them. I think it's science. I don't believe in it. I know it.
I'm there with
It's
you.
science. And so all of these things that we surround ourselves with hold all this energy. And whether we know it or not, whether we relate to it actively or subconsciously, it's there. So putting attention on that, which we both do in different ways, is just critical. It's so important.
Yeah. So you offer a few ways in which people can work with you or collaborate with you. I love that you kind of bring that, it's an effort on both parts, right? You're not coming in to save the day because at the end of the day, it really is up to the client to kind of decide for themselves what they're ready to move on from or depart with or whatever. Um, and I think it's important because I like that you meet people where they are.
I think it's great because people can be immediately overwhelmed by a project just looking at their space and thinking, I don't even know where to begin.
Mhm.
Right.
Our offering is so specific in that it cannot be done without the client. It's not a method that you can learn and then I can just come in and Mary Poppins through your gorgeous home and make it look super neat and lovely and color coded and minimized and catalog ready. Nor do I believe that it needs to be that, unless that's what you seek, in which case, let's go. It's
Yeah.
beautiful and exciting. But and you and I both know amazing people who can help get them there.
Right.
Um, it's very much about meeting them where they are and honoring how they live. And we are so different one from the other. What we need to feel good in our spaces is very personal. Um, it could be a minimalist approach and it could be a maximalist approach and everything in between. It could be people with systemic trauma. It could be people with hoarding tendencies. And again, and anything and everything in between. So none of them are lost cases or done deals as far as I'm concerned. This is just an acknowledgement of that's what that person needs to be living in their space. How can we make it more comfortable?
And I'm sure you get this too, especially initially, is, they want the help, but there's so much shame and guilt around asking for help and embarrassment of how their space might look.
Yeah.
I'm curious how because I'd say 95% of my clients, upon first meeting them, say, "Oh, I'm so embarrassed by my don't mind this or don't mind," right? There's just such this like icky shame. And I want to like dissolve that for people. So I'm curious what your response is when someone approaches you with that.
Yeah, it's very similar in mine, and I like your choice of words. I use them too. Those would be my 2 most used terms to describe how people feel in their spaces when they call on a professional like us: shame and guilt. I honor that they feel this way. I also find that by the time they call us, they've already started down a path of transformation.
Mm,
I think when they're not there, they won't call. And when they do, something has already begun to shift, a curiosity, an understanding, or reaching the limit, the
mm.
capacity, recognizing that they're nearing a point of transition to a place they don't want to go to for one reason or another. Um, Maybe there's a deadline. Maybe there's a timeline that's dictating this. Doesn't matter what the reason is, the truth is there's already a level of preparedness. So they'll use these terms, and for sure, I acknowledge that and I respect that. And I understand where it comes from. It's so human. Like we literally go through
Yeah.
people's extreme personal spaces and belongings. But there's a readiness, and I shift the energy in that direction as soon as I possibly can. I diffuse it by holding space for that and recognizing the potential of what's happening now that I'm in the space with them versus just holding back to those valid yet no longer relevant emotions.
I love that you said you kind of hold space for it because I think sometimes people brush that off like, oh, don't worry about it. But it's really important to honor it because I think they need to know that they're being heard. Like a lot of these emotions are painful for people, right? Especially if, I see it a lot with like inherited furniture. Like there's a lot of times people are really attached to them because they really did appreciate these pieces from their grandparents or whatever. But then I see people holding on to things too that they just don't even want. It just feels heavy in their space and it's outdated and doesn't fit their style. But maybe there's family members saying, but you have to keep it. So, yeah, again, holding
And
space for them and just allowing them to express it because it's all being stuck somewhere in their house, in their body, right?
totally all these different energies, not only theirs and not only
Mhm.
the stuff. It's just what we bring so much into our spaces subconsciously and unknowingly, even like just all of those conversations that took place around those things, their previous uses. And yeah, I hold space and I validate this moment for them. And then I quickly shift it to ingest a much more excited energy, full of
Mhm.
potential, kind of rich of curiosity to see what it could be. And if it's around a particular object like that, like a family heirloom or something like that, we could quickly consider, first of all, I'll ask right away, and do you like it? And if they say no, it's really funny. It's like a funny moment. No, I freaking hate it. I always
Yeah.
hated it. And I just can't get rid of it. And it's like, again, a nice release of emotions toward a thing. Like that starts the dialogue between the people and the things and kind of raise a new level of awareness and consciousness around that relationship, which is so beautiful to witness. And then from that, decisions can be made more wholefully. Is that the word? Like from a more
So,
whole place, like really just genuine. I'm just gonna let that go. It's been here forever. Nobody here cares. My parents don't even care. They don't care, and nobody cares. Let's move
yeah.
on. Or could this be something else? Like, could we upcycle this in any way? Could we turn this into something new and exciting? Could you place it in a different place in the home and therefore it will serve a different purpose? I'll just ask these tickling almost questions that will just spark a fun, curious, more joyful kind of exchange and hopefully help them reach a decision around it and then move on. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
need to be a life or death big deal decision. You can change your mind tomorrow or after I leave. It's all good. It's also part of the exploration.
Yeah, I do very similar. I mean, whether it's feng shui, like energy work, or whether it's interior design, redecorating, or whatever, the first step is always removing because we do not realize how much we accumulate over time. And same thing, it's can this be repurposed? Do you love it? Does it bring you joy? Just doing that can shift the energy of the piece and the way you feel about it as well.
Absolutely, 100%. And I will say, the distinction that I think is true for both you and I, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that it doesn't always need to spark joy. Like it's
Mm,
also okay if it makes you confused or sad or nervous about something to do with family around it, or just not ready to let it go, but don't really know why. But it doesn't not spark joy. Like there's
yes.
something simplistic and very smart about just call it that. Does it make you happy or not? Like, does it
Mm,
really bring this out of you that you don't even need to like overthink it? You know that this thing is a good thing in your life. I just nuance it by saying it's okay if it doesn't bring you joy, but you could still keep it if
yeah.
even if it brings you to tears.
Yeah. It's infusing that little bit of intuition into it too. Just let it be easy, let it come. And I find that it's really always an emotional attachment and it can range the whole spectrum of emotions, as you kind of just alluded to. And I find that when you can get to that core emotion of what it is, that's usually when people can let it go if they want to. And then again, if it is something that they're not sure of, move it to another space or maybe put it in the basement or somewhere where it's out of sight for a few months and then revisit it. Like, did you miss it? Are you seeing it differently now 4 months later? Because there's a lot of beautiful furniture out there and not everybody wants to get rid of things. And I think too, a lot of our past generations just really, with the depression and all of that, there was just a lot of this clinging to things. And so I think just as a collective, we're moving into like a different way of living and we're being really conscious consumers. And at least for me, that's what I try to preach is, before it even gets into the house, let's really be mindful of how we're purchasing as well.
Yeah, what we choose to keep in our homes, what we choose to bring in. I wish for us to become, as you and I shift the conversation to sustainability a little bit, I'll speak to that, but we
Yeah.
could do better on the consumer stuff. But it's true that we are different from our parents and grandparents in how we view the relationship with possessions. They did what they thought was right at the time. I think collectively as a society, as the Western society, we kind of lost track of that at some point and became like customers to everything and
Yeah.
consumers of everything and lovers of stuff. But Sarah, just again circle back because I love how you think and how you frame things and your use of words, and it's so accurate that you offer your clients the option to put items away for a little bit and think about it and then circle back to it is lovely. I think most professional organizers or people in our category would often be assumed that like the last thing you want is to suggest to someone to store it somewhere
Yeah.
out of sight. But I actually honor what you're doing because I think that's part of that exploration that is exciting, that is breaking the traditional thinking around what's organized. If we talk about wellness in the space, what makes us feel better, It's a game. It's an everyday curiosity, and I think you're suggesting an invitation to something more exploratory that is in the vein of any curiosity that people have around like physical wellness and even curation of their home. It's like it's the same. It's the same vein of like play with this, sit with this
Yes.
for a little bit. It's okay. You don't need to decide right now, and it's
Yeah.
okay if it's in the attic for a season or two.
Absolutely. Agreed. I just don't see any reason in dictating how a client should live in their space. I view what we're doing as helping, not dictating, right? It's not my house. I'm just trying to kind of guide you to the next step to where you can feel like you can breathe in your home or you feel good in your home, right? All right. So I'm going to shift gears a little bit and we're going to talk about sustainability. That's a huge component of your services and your approach. And obviously, I want to hear more about this and ways you're working with not only your clients, but other businesses to commit to a zero waste practice.
Yeah, well, thank you for bringing that up because to me, this really has become a focal point in the offerings of Balaboste and something I'm super proud of. It's really was born out of the process itself. Um, it became clear to me that it's not almost not fair to leave my clients with the volume of things they already committed to letting go of and letting them figure out how to properly dispose of it. Often people don't get rid of things just because they don't know how to get rid of them in a perhaps sustainable way, but even just can I recycle this or not? Is this garbage? Is it a donation? Is it, oh, you know what? Never mind. I'm just going to keep it on the shelf. I don't care to be bothered. Um, so I think after doing the complex legwork of deciding what stays and what goes, I could be of service there too, and really just make sure that we clear those items with giving my clients the promise of properly managing these unused goods and doing the highest and best service to each and every item that they no longer need. I think it's also honoring the energetic space that I mentioned to you I studied and continue to embody in both my work and life practices. So it just felt very congruent to what was already being done. I started asking around about metal scrap recycling and electronic breakage and textile donations and just very technical questions and very quickly found an engaged community in the village where I live. Um, and I've joined a couple of committees right out of the gate that focus on sustainability. And the more I engage in this, the more I deepen my learning about where we are as a society, in specifically for me in New York City and Westchester counties in New York, but also the state as a whole, and then the country as a whole, and then the world. My learning grows on an ongoing basis the more I dig into this, and we are in trouble, my friend. Like, it's just there
Yeah.
is a big volume of things that need to be managed. And I'll just say I'm excited to be a servant toward the solution around.
Yeah. I think what you're doing is unlike anything I've ever really witnessed in this space. I work out in my office and just the amount of fabric samples and tile samples that I get. And then what do I do with them? They are stuck in here, but I have found there's a lot of art communities that will take those things for scrap material. And so I'm curious what are some really good examples or resources that people, regardless of what city can look in, that they can, because I think that's so common for so many people. I mean, even me, always questioning, is this recyclable? Can I try it? What? And then they stopped recycling glass in our neighborhood. Like they won't pick it up anymore. So then it's like, you throw away a bottle and you just feel like that guilt again, right? So what are some ideas? Like, what can people Google and research for their cities?
Well, first, talk about guilt and shame, right?
Yeah, back
Um,
to it.
I think, the system kind of fails us right now. It's
Mm.
actually it's bigger than us. They don't do a good enough job in educating us in where and how to be more mindful about sustainable practices and reaching low waste, if not zero waste in our communities. Really is a systemic failure. So we'll start by that. And actually, I'm really looking to disrupt that space in this capacity and really try and shift the focus to bringing in and ingesting the solution to this problem. Yeah, I constantly say, like, if we had to pay for the garbage that we put out by weight, we would think differently about what we throw in the garbage. Um, and this is just one example to where the system fails us. Like we now it makes it so easy. You just put it out on the curb. You don't have to worry about it. It gets hauled away from you. It's not in your backyard. You don't have to worry about how it gets processed and where. And um, that's what I'm hoping to shift. And there are dozens and hundreds of organizations that are already thinking forward this way. And yeah, in every local community, you can find your anything from the Goodwills and the Salvation Armies and American Red Crosses of the world. Those are all, most of them are actually for profit institutions that just will take the stuff, assess how much of it has value, what is that monetary value, and then work to sell it. The better ones will actually also give you the promise that if they cannot properly sell it or salvage it in that way, they will sustainably dispose of it. So in the case of textiles, they will have them shredded and then stuffed into pillows or like some process that suggests it's circular economy. I love those. And a lot of our research is done to make sure that the companies that we choose to donate these unused goods to practice this kind of sustainable practice. So, book recyclers will be the ones that really give the guarantee that if they can't resell it for their own profit, fair enough. I mean, that there's a lot of work and time and effort that goes into trucking it from where I am to where they will be selling it, to cataloging it, to managing, that inventory, to selling it, to shipping it again. And then those that don't sell, they will actually unbound the cover from the papers. They'll recycle the paper. If the cover is leather bound, it's one process. If it's plastic, it's another process. If it's spiral, if it, like we don't think so
It's
granularly, but
amazing.
that's
Yeah.
literally the process. And you can go across every category in our household items. It's that complex. So my quick 2 cents would be if you have it in you to do the right thing by these unused goods, try and see if you can give them another life, and if not through your own home and hands, um, someone else could certainly benefit from it. And the last thing I'll plug is there are all these amazing online groups for free take and put
Mm.
solutions. From free cycle to local Facebook groups. I love the local buy nothing, sell nothing groups that I think this was started in Seattle by 2 women and has become one of the largest national groups on Facebook.
Yeah.
And it's a remarkable, like a community comes together, someone can say, "I no longer need this," or "I am in search of this," and the community will rally and they will get what they need. It's lovely.
It's great. Just recently, a friend had shared a clothing
Mm,
company,
yeah.
and you can buy brand new clothes, but everything is recycled. And they'll also send you like a bag, and you could put whatever rags, old socks, whatever, and you just mail the bag and they get rid of it for you. I think that's genius because we do a lot of donation. My mother in law runs a free store out of her church. And so we donate a lot there. But then I'm like, I don't really want to donate some used socks, after, I have a 10-year-old boy, like they're black on the bottom, like nobody wants these. So I was, always question, like, what do I do with these? I don't want to throw them away. And then a friend had shared that with me. So yeah, you're right. I mean, there's just things popping up all over the place if you're looking for it. Right.
Yeah, really. And I'm hoping that in conversations like the one you and I are having today, people will start raising more awareness to it and shifting focus more in this direction, understanding that if we want to talk our walk and actually try and do what we can on an individual level to save the planet, to just live a more sustainable lifestyle, to be a little bit more conscientious about how and what we accumulate and what we do with the stuff that we don't need, and understanding when we buy a thing, what the life cycle of it is and how will I dispose of it when I no longer need it. All of this kind of thinking, I'm hoping could start coming into the forefront in
Yeah.
our conversation.
So I would think that that's a pretty big lift. It's a lift for the client and you're taking that on for them. So how do you have like a full team? Like how do you I want to know about your process because I want to integrate this a little bit into my practice too. Like how can I serve more? How can I offload and ensure that clients are getting rid of things that they really want to and not just feeling overwhelmed by it and hang on to it, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm so grateful that you say that. That's high praise. I appreciate it. I do have a small team. We're small and lean, but growing. I'm onboarding a new person tomorrow morning. I'm
Oh,
very excited. The team that I have are the people that are supporting with the sustainability piece, specifically that. So I'm still client facing and we'll go into the client's home and engage in the session. At the end of the session, haul the stuff out. It's what fits in the car at this point. But really, if we know that there's more to it than that, we can arrange for that and do more heavy lifting. And then the team here will help me funnel through what I brought from the car or otherwise and determine what's the highest and best use for each and every item. Recycle, recycle, recycle. Donate, donate, donate. Anywhere from medical equipment to medical nonprofit organizations that ship stuff to Doctors Without Borders internationally, and they don't have sufficient funds ever. But we all bought dozens and dozens of types of masks, let's say, for example, in the last 3 years, and only one or two stuck as our favorite. And all the others, if we did good, we donated somewhere. So AFIA, that's the organization, AFYA, AFIA.org, do incredible job in medical supplies. Um, and like I said, the book recyclers and the textile
mhm.
donators and like just all these different solutions. And we literally haul it out. We
Wow.
physically do the hard labor of clearing this stuff sustainably.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And you can too. How it's a matter of capacity. Like it's really a lot of work. But it sounds to me like you already know that there are all these resources out there. And so when the need arises with a particular client, maybe it's a question to you. Do you then do the legwork to find, just like you did with the textiles? Do you do that with any other materials ever for you or
Yeah.
your clients?
Well, to this point, I've always left it to the client to kind of manage that part. But I mean, integrating that into my service offering, it sounds like a lot. Or even just getting them in touch with the right resources. So I think that step one is really starting to research where the resources are and how they can help, because I know a lot of these places, if it's a pretty massive clean out, like I know there's a place locally that will go and do the clean out themselves. It has to be a big enough project. The resources are definitely out there. I think just in talking with you, I'm just feeling inspired to take more action in a way that's helpful for clients.
Yeah, and that's wonderful, Sarah. I'm thrilled to hear this. And I think maybe it can even start on a more personal level. I learned and changed so much of our family's behavior as a result of my informed work. I didn't compost before. It just seemed like so smart and so sensible and so like icky and time I don't have and energy I don't have and to put that little canister on the counter. I don't have a lot of counter space in my kitchen, like all these different
I
reasons.
feel it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy. Um, Certain local solutions made it easier for me to keep considering, like a startup that clears compost from my curb, like recycling and commingling and regular garbage does, really
Mhm.
helped motivate me. I was like, oh, they can come and take it from my curb like all the other stuff. That's easier. So that coupled with their cute, sexy design of the canister that sits on the counter, coupled with and then I was like, "Fine." And now it's a real game changer for us. So perhaps some personal exploration too.
Yeah, for sure. I feel that, especially the composting, because every time I throw that apple core away, I'm like, yeah, I think about it. I'm like, I need to get that countertop compost. I still haven't gotten it yet. It's like I think about it and then I move on with my day until I cut the next apple the next day. So it's funny, but not funny. These are such little things that we can do in our lives that can make big differences over time. So,
It's true.
so happy that we're having this conversation.
Donate me when next time you cut an apple open.
I know. I know. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, Gal, thank you so much for coming on. This was a wonderful conversation. Thank you for the work you're doing. It's inspiring and it's empowering, and you really are bringing a lot of light to the world with your practices and looking out for your clients and the planet, all of it. It's really wonderful.
Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to talk about it with you, Sarah. I'm very inspired by what you do for other reasons, and I continue to follow you and listen to you. And I love that we orbit the same circles. I appreciate that
Yes.
very much.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people listening find you? And do you work remotely with clients?
I do. It's not as effective, but I can
Sure.
certainly offer, the same input and counsel virtually. My website is balaboste.com. I think it kind of tells the story well and lays out, the details in a way that I hope is clear enough. Social media, I'm mostly on Instagram. It's all evolving these days. So
Yeah.
I think so I'll stick with those two. I think those are the definite.
Yeah, that's where I'm hanging out these days too. So great. I will put all of that in the show notes so everybody gets the right spelling of Balabusta. Oh, I even got a little busta in the
You
last
got it
one. It's
good.
good. I'm doing good. Great. All right, Gal. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you, Sarah. Thanks so much.
As I said in the intro, Gal's passion and purpose is so inspiring, and I hope that you gained at least one takeaway from this conversation. Whether that is just looking at your space and objects that you're living with in a new light, maybe starting small with composting, or even just researching more ways in which to recycle those items that you're planning to let go of. I certainly plan to continue conversations like this, so if any of you listening resonate and have something you want to share, please reach out to me. Also, just a reminder that the best way to support me and the podcast is to rate, review, and share this podcast with your friends. Reviews in particular really help us grow so that we can reach and help as many people as possible. More information about my home services and offerings can always be found at my website at jadescottdesign.com. Until next time, as always, much love and gratitude.